Hello friends, for today's video we're back with another 1-star reviews, and if you've never seen this series on my channel, the idea is that I take a popular book or series or a collection of works by a specific author, and then I find reviews and then I read all of those off to all of you. And today we are looking at Tress of the Emerald Sea, a Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and the Sunlit Man. So Sanderson'S secret projects. I could have just said that. I will say I had to cheat a little bit because I actually had to dive into some 2-star reviews. There are not that many 1-star reviews, which should tell you Sanderson doesn't seem to receive a whole lot of 1-star reviews. It is, I suppose, a conversation for another day about fandom, that even when people don't really care for something by a specific author, does their love for that author cloud their usual form of rating? Another aspect of this is that some of the 1-star reviews just weren't that funny. It was actually really nice and kind of pleasant rhetoric where people would be like, oh, I normally love Sanderson's work, so this hurts a lot, but this one just didn't work for me. And that's reasonable and understandable and how I expect most reviews to go. So it did take a little bit of extra searching to find ones that I felt were entertaining and worth sharing. If you are interested in seeing more videos in this series, I'll have my playlist linked. And because next month is February, we are finally getting around to doing a compilation of Sarah J. Maas's works and doing 1-star reviews for those. Jumping finally into it with Tress of the Emerald Sea to start, I'm going to go in order of when these were released. The first one, in all caps, says, okay, I get it, Sanderson trying to be the funny author, and the ocean is spores and it's green. JFC, what a snooze fest. I ended up skimming the hell out of this one and it still sucked balls. Woman with amazing hair who loves cups, is so honest and cunning, ends up saving her lover without any real hardship. Whoop-de-doo. And then I also am amused that somebody replied to this review and just said, LOL, great review. No, it's not the worst book I ever read. And for some reason they capitalized the W in worst and then the E in ever and the R in read. So anyway, no, it's not the worst book I ever read, but somehow Fourth Wing was more enjoyable and I gave that 2 stars, so boring. The voice sucked. No one had any depth. The world somehow felt so small despite being the only interesting thing about this. Way too long. Blah. I think that this next one is going to amuse quite a few people. I haven't heard of Sanderson before a couple weeks ago because I live under a rock or something. Whichever editor told him, yes, of course, this is fine to do a Lemony Snicket / Pratchett style prose when you're not very good at writing and don't have anything of substance to say, is an evil genius, because they're making banks, but it is truly mystifying to me why. Narrator even leans on the, haha, I am an irritating character. Yeah, you sure are. World building had intriguing aspects, but since the narrative voice didn't want to leave my disbelief suspended for more than a dozen pages, it fell flat. I don't see myself reading more of that guy's work. I have to say, as somebody who is definitely within the fantasy bubble, I do think a lot of us who engage with content on BookTube, who make content on BookTube, or just bookish content online, especially fantasy fans, to imagine that somebody who reviews things on Goodreads doesn't know Sanderson. Actually, it's not that it makes me happy, but I just really like those reminders that so many people, there are so many readers beyond just the ones that are in our bubble. So for that reason, I actually kind of liked seeing somebody say, I don't know who this guy is, but I don't think I'm going to read anything else by him. But also the amusement, because so many of us within our bubble have this idea that everybody picking up the secret projects knows what they're getting into. And I don't really think any of the secret projects are on the same level as something like Mistborn, something like Stormlight. However, because a lot of us knew going in what we were getting, that these were just sort of these projects that Sanderson went ahead and indulged in because he had some additional time during the pandemic. And he wasn't having, the reason he had more time is because he wasn't traveling as much and doing all those more in-person type of events. And so he decided, I'm going to write these things I've always wanted to write because I have the time and just have fun with it. And that's what he did. And he took a risk and he took a chance and he wanted to provide those stories for anybody that was interested, his fans. He wanted to provide a really fun experience with these stories. He wanted to have beautiful editions, include artists in on them, and those sorts of things. But it does beg the question, if you are outside of the bubble, if you are not somebody who knows what you're getting, where it's like, okay, I don't expect this to be a Stormlight book, are they up to standard with a lot of the other fantasy books out there? And for me, I know somebody in a recent video talked about how they were a little disappointed with the year of Sanderson, and I said, like, oh, maybe I'll do a video, I don't know. I'm choosing not to do one because I just feel like I've talked about the individual books so much that I feel like we do not need more of me just reiterating the same points. But I think Tress and Yumi, for me personally, were ones that I could see people enjoying outside of, I keep using the term the bubble, but I'll use it again. But Sunlit Man certainly is not, because it's so Cosmere specific and really Cosmere heavy. And then Frugal Wizard, it's odd in that it feels in some ways like middle grade, and it reads to me like how Sanderson writes his more youthful books, but at the same time has certain things that feel like thematically are more specific to people that are middle-aged. So I don't really know how to categorize that one. I personally just think that Tress and Yumi are good. They're not on the same level as the other stuff. And if somebody comes to Sanderson's works not having read anything before, I do actually kind of see why they might pick something up and be like, I don't know if this is my thing, especially because the writing is so different in Tress from his usual works. One more thing I'll add. I promise I'll get around to the other negative reviews in a second. But I do find it really funny because this person is outside of this knowledge that we all have about the secret projects, that this review specifically is saying, whoever had this idea, and you're like, kind of seems like it was just Sanderson's idea, and he even put it outside of his publisher, and the publisher, of course, eventually wanted to publish the books, but he put these out himself through his Kickstarter, so I guess the evil genius is himself? Question mark. And next, finally getting around to the next one. This review says, a collection of attempted quips. And that's all. Oh man, when I saw this, I was like, is this accurate? This book cannot possibly have a higher rating, 4.6 stars at the time of posting, than Mistborn, Elantris, Edge Dancer, or Warbreaker. Everyone heaping such lofty praise on this book is either blinded by loyalty to Sanderson or grading on some sort of curve. There's no way this book is objectively above 3.5 stars. None. I think, as much as I love Mistborn, the Edge Dancer one surprises me because as much as I don't care for Lift, and I know a lot of other people don't care for Lift, the Stormlight Archive novellas do have an extraordinarily high average rating. Those are the Tress ones. Now going to Frugal Wizard. I have one, I believe it's literally one review for Frugal Wizard. But a lot of us didn't care for Frugal Wizard. So when I saw this one that was so long and so detailed, I was like, I think that's all I need for Frugal Wizard. What the world does not know is there are two Brandon Sandersons. They have the same hair, the same eyeglasses prescription, the same wife and kids. When one grows a beard, the other can't help but follow suit. When the other gets a new scar, the same lesion will plague the former. They are indistinguishable by sight alone. The key to knowing, I'm losing my voice, sorry. The key to knowing them individually is to actually read the works of Brandon Sanderson. Now, one of these Brandons is brilliant. He crafts worlds that are relatable, but wholly different from our own. These worlds are religiously, socially, and politically dynamic. He challenges the tropes of his genre, develops thorough systems of magic that his fans call mind-bending, and exploits the nuance of humanity to flesh out his heroes and villains. He asks, what if? He's good. He's really good. He wrote the earliest novels, and I'd say most of, but not all, of Sanderson's ongoing epic Stormlight archive. The other Brandon? Well, he's a dad. He tells the dad jokes that only he laughs at. He won't stop telling them. He's a man-child who projects his geeky man-childishness onto characters who really probably don't make sense as man-children. He believes in family, which is noble, but to a Disney clean degree that seems just a little too tired and a little too good to be true. There is no grit to this Brandon. He tries. Oh, does he try? But it only comes off as inauthentic and playing off some cool summer blockbuster action hero that inspired him behind a tub of popcorn. This Sanderson is who gave us Alcatraz, exhaustingly snarky, The Reckoners, and most of Tress, though not all, thank God. This Brandon is clueless. This Brandon This is the Brandon that Wired journalist Jason Keehee unfairly zeroed in on in his widely lambasted article, Brandon Sanderson is Your God. Like many Sanderson fans, I found the article to be a poor review of Sanderson, but after reading the Frugal Wizard's whatever they said, I think he might be right. A little bit. Not completely, but enough to make me feel some embarrassment at ever having recommended Sanderson to other readers. This book is hands down the worst Sanderson book I have ever read. It has elements of the Sanderson I love to read, the Sanderson I described first, the Sanderson who birthed a Cosmere full of planets and unique magic systems that didn't seem connected at all until suddenly they were. Like those stories, there is a compelling world in this book. It's not part of the Cosmere, but it could almost be our world if only our pagan gods were real and the events in our history had played out a bit differently. I wanted to know more about this version of Europe that he'd created. I mean, Christianity is consolidated into Zoroastrianism. As a historian, I want to play in a sandbox where that is reality. The problem is that the second Sanderson is the primary author of this book. It's told in first person, it's snarky and funny in all the ways that Sanderson has failed before in other books, most of them his YA literature. As Sanderson's books become more popular, he gains more leeway with his projects, and I'm afraid he's gotten almost too relaxed. He's still exploring and inventing new things, but so much character is lost because he can't help inserting his stupid dad humor into everything. This is especially true of Sanderson's male protagonists, who are always immature goofballs who are not believable as heroes, let alone adults. They all have stupid jokes they take too far. Carp diem, seize the fish, get it? Herp derp derp. Or they have what I call Sanderson quirks, like Bad Metaphors, the Reckoner series, and 1 to 5 star reviews on random things, the Frugal Wizard. This poor humor has infiltrated Sanderson's other works to an insufferable amount. It's distracting, it's always taken too far, like pages of explaining bad metaphors alone, and it never gets better. The story itself drags due to the fact that the unlikable first-person narrator is suffering from amnesia. We as readers are stuck with him trying to figure out who he is or marveling at his own ineptness instead of carrying on with any plot. The asides and tangents in this book were so distracting that I can't tell you what actually happened because it gave me amnesia trying to slog through this. There was a bad guy, some following around, then Vikings, fight, 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 conclusion. I think that's it. Like many Sanderson novels, there are some twists in this, but they aren't earth-shattering. In fact, some of them are obvious from the get-go, but I wasn't invested enough to pretend to myself that I was surprised. There's more. If you're thinking like, oh, is that it? No. Look, I get that Sanderson is busy. He produces a lot. He's bound to have duds. I think I'm just finding that, as he grows more prolific within the fantasy sci-fi genre, he's gotten too comfortable. And why not? He makes a good living for his family. He's still down to earth and personable with fans. I can't deny that Brandon Sanderson is a fantastic person and the best kind of celebrity you could ever hope to meet. He deserves to write what he wants to write. I remember the days, however, when there was less of his goofy side in his stories and he leaned more into the challenge of creating. He's good at that. More often than not these days, we get more geek dad. Honestly, it's probably because Sanderson has finally gained the accolades of his tribe through his continuation of Robert Jordan's series and the debut of his own Stormlight Archive with its own cast of attractive epic heroes that fans can live vicariously through. If those are the only folks you need to impress to be successful, you can't help but eventually isolate the fans who aren't geeks or dads. To be fair, this does happen with other writers, filmmakers, artists, etc. all the time. Wes Anderson and hipsters, Tim Burton and goths, etc. I'm just bummed, and I miss the deeper Sanderson I first read through Elantris, Warbreaker, and Mistborn Era 1. Ah well, maybe Yumi will pull me back in. As I said, I don't feel the need to read any more reviews besides that one. I am curious your thoughts on this because I do think that the secret projects are kind of a step in a different direction for Sanderson and what he wanted to do creatively, and I don't disagree that Frugal Wizard, I think I even just said it a second ago, it feels like his more middle grade type of writing, and I think that the silliness, the kind of dad joke type of humor, I think it works in some of those younger things, or maybe here and there sprinkled in, especially if there is a character where it's fitting for them to have that. A big thing I have found the more we're getting from Sanderson, the more in the Cosmere we're getting, is that I have certain elements of Sanderson's works that I like and that I want more of. I do appreciate that he's willing to try different things, have different tones of voice, and have different types of characters in his stories to appeal to different people and to explore different avenues, because there are certain writers who everything you get from them, on one hand, you feel secure that you're always going to like it, but at the same time, it can feel like you're just getting the same exact story, but with a different setting, or the same exact story, but a different cast of characters. And you don't feel like that with Sanderson. I feel like a good example before The Secret Projects was just Mistborn Era 1 versus Era 2. Those are incredibly different in so many ways, but I have felt like we're leaning into the silly so much that it's not feeling like we're doing different things from book to book. It is feeling like we're just settling into that silly. If that's what he wants to do, then that's what he wants to do. It's not gonna be, for me, I think I'll always kind of hold to the Mistborn Era 1 tone, the Stormlight Archive, the incredible examinations of trauma and mental health, that really epic heroism that you get in those, and the silly that you see with characters like Wayne, with characters like Lift and Edge Dancer, and then also, even though it's not Cosmere, but what you see with Frugal Wizard. If that is going to be kind of the future of a lot of Sanderson works, then I might not love a lot of what we get moving forward. But that's my own taste, and I know there are some people that love that side of Sanderson. I know somebody personally who has said before that they just don't think Sanderson is as good when he tries to do anything serious, and I was like, what? I feel so completely the opposite. Please give me more of the serious. I want more of that. So there are elements to that review that I maybe on one hand kind of agree with. I maybe don't feel exactly the same, because I think there is a place for authors to explore those different types of tones. But I just don't want it to overwhelm all of his works, to be the thing that all of his works become known for. Moving now to Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. We're already kind of far in, so I'm only going to read a couple. One of them said, made it to 86%, and kept thinking, please end, I don't even care what happens. This next one, let me just say in advance that please do not allow this review to cloud your judgment toward all people of a certain group. This one individual does not represent everybody. So let's read their review. Yumi and her new bra. Seriously, I thought by the 5th mention it would be integral to the plot resolution. It's practically a supporting character. Heh. Of all of his various fantasy elements, nothing stretches credulity as much as a 19-year-old becoming less interested in the nudity of the woman he's falling in love with. Sanderson is getting more tedious. Maybe at the meta level, it's just Hoyd that's too sanctimonious. The books are no longer about epic conflict, but are instead about trauma, empathy, sexism, and shoehorning in a new sexuality. But those are the readers whose feedback he's chosen to take to heart as a Reddit author. His earliest fans, the BYU students, delighted to finally find adventures not actively hostile to our values, are once again homeless, as our hero describes himself as an agent for change in the community that once embraced him. Okay, hostile to your views. You ask in the same review for him to have the 19-year-old want to see the girl naked. Like, he has more and more thoughts about being like, I want to see her naked. One, I don't feel like that's ever been Sanderson's thing, really. But given that we're like, we used to get like the good stuff, and now we have this character that doesn't want to see the girl naked the more he's around her. I mean, come on. Also, just the fact, I'm sorry, but the fact that it's like, it used to be about epic conflict. Oh, now it's about empathy, which is fine if you feel that. I mean, if you just want to read something that's completely empty and devoid of any substance, I don't know what to tell you. The fact that he doesn't want books that talk about sexism and like the real fans back in the day. Okay, let's look at Sanderson's very first published work. The character of, depending on how you say it, you might say Serene, you might say Serene. Her arc is very much rooted in the sexism that she has to push through. And I do think there are some legitimate criticisms. Like, there is a hint of like, I'm not like other girls. I don't like these girly things. Thus, I am a strong girl. There's a little bit of that in it, but I think that the intention was there and that for the most part, it's executed pretty well. I actually really like that character quite a bit. So I'm curious, since you're one of the OG fans, what did you think of that? Because you don't want anything to do with sexism. Or is it like a Dalinar with his wife thing, where you just hear like anytime there's anything remotely related to a character being dismissed. And then to say like we're homeless now, which is an extreme use of words to describe your situation. Anyway, moving now to the Sunlit Man, this review says, one of the best writers of all time couldn't come up with a better name than Nomad? That's sad. This one says, I don't get it. I think the more I learn about Sanderson'S Cosmere, the more I might unlearn to like it. Rather than finding pieces that are falling into place to make sense of the world he's created, the more I find holes in the expansion of its plot. Intentionally misdirecting readers by giving one specific character 4 different names that he's known by has its limitations. I'm feeling a similar fatigue to Nomad as we world hop together. Insert eye roll. Where to next? What form will the next magic science take on? I don't think there will ever be an end to the shattering of Adelnasium and its merry-go-round. That's it for some 1-star and a few 2-star reviews of Sanderson's secret projects. If you are interested in seeing more 1-star review videos, I'll have my playlist linked. Let me know your thoughts on these though. Let me know your thoughts on the secret projects as a whole. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.